Do you need a dealer's license in order to grow and scale on Turo? This is a question that I get asked all the time, and in today's video, we're going to be diving deep on this subject. And I'm going to be breaking down whether or not you need a dealer's license in order to grow and scale successfully on Turo, whether or not you should have one, and if you're somebody that's on the fence of getting one, when you should finally pull the trigger on making that decision. So let's get started. Now, let me first preface this video by saying I do not have my dealer's license. So in this video, I don't want to talk about how to go about getting a dealer's license because the reality is I am definitely not an expert whenever it comes to that subject. Instead, what I want to talk about is the thought process and some of the things that you should keep in mind if this is a decision that you're wanting or looking to make. I have an 18-car Turo fleet. I've been on Turo for 5 years. I've never had a dealer's license, so I've never purchased any of my cars with the dealer's license, but this is actually a decision that I'm currently in the process of making, and it does look like this is something that I'm going to be getting for my own fleet in 2023. So I'm really going to walk you through the thought process that I used whenever I was justifying this decision for my own business. So let's first address the very first question of this video, which is, do you need to have a dealer's license in order to grow and scale efficiently and successfully on Turo? And the answer to the question is a resounding no. Now, like I mentioned a moment ago, I don't have a dealer's license. I've never had a dealer's license, and yet I've grown my Turo fleet to 18 cars, and I've purchased dozens more over the course of the last 5 years. In fact, I know of many hosts that never got a dealer's license, and if they did, they got one very late in their Turo career. For example, Jaron with Island Rides, which is an interview that I did here on the channel a couple of months ago, he has about 85 cars currently. He does have his dealer's license in present day, but he actually didn't get that dealer's license until he had about 40 cars. And this kind of seems to be the pretty normal thing that I've seen with really successful Turo hosts. Really successful Turo hosts do oftentimes eventually get their dealer's license, but they do it once their Turo business is already solidified, not at the very beginning. So they'll look at getting it whenever they hit 20, 30, 40 cars, rather than looking to get it whenever they're at 5 or 6. So the question of, do you need a dealer's license in order to grow and scale? Absolutely not. Does a dealer's license make your life a little bit easier and a little bit more profitable? Probably. But do you need one? The answer is no. But then that leads us to the much more difficult question of, should you get a dealer's license? And the problem with this question is that it isn't just a simple yes or no answer of yes, you should, or no, you should not get a dealer's license. Because the reality is there are a lot of secondary questions that need to be asked along with this primary one. For example, do you meet the requirements of getting a dealer's license in your state? And if the answer to that question is no, are you prepared to make investments and changes with your current business model in order to meet those requirements? Is the lack of a dealer's license holding you back in any way in present day? And lastly, can you make more profit with a dealer's license than without? And will it make a substantial enough difference to make this venture worth it? These are the questions that I've asked myself over the years to either decide on getting or not getting a dealer's license. But let me explain a little bit further. Dealer requirements vary from state to state, but in most states, you have to take an online course, get a surety bond, have an LLC and an EIN, and you have to have a commercial space that meets specific requirements outlined by your state. Most of this is fairly easy to get, but the one big sticking point for a lot of people, including myself, is that commercial space requirement. Because of this requirement of needing some sort of commercial space, for me, I feel like getting a dealer's license and getting a commercial space are very intertwined with one another. You shouldn't do one unless you're ready for both commitments. My thought process has personally always been that I would get a dealer's license once I was ready for a commercial space, but I would not get a dealer's license until that point in time came. So basically, it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, the commercial space or the dealer's license? And from my point of view, the commercial space always took priority because I never wanted to get a commercial space purely so that I could get a dealer's license. I really wanted the timing of these two things to work out nicely with each other. That way I wasn't leaving any money on the table or any extra money on the table. So you of course have to ask yourself the question, are you ready to meet the dealership requirements, specifically with the commercial space? Does it make sense for you to get a commercial space? Do you have access to one at a relatively affordable price that will align with your current finances? And will a commercial space help you grow or hinder your growth in present day? These are questions that you need to keep in mind, and these questions will really help point you in the right direction of whether or not a dealer's license is the right choice for you. This is a really important question to ask yourself because I think many people, including myself if I'm being honest, like the idea of a dealer's license more than anything. And because of this, there are many people, again, putting myself in that category, that probably want to get a dealer's license sooner than it actually makes sense to do so. With a dealer's license, would you be able to buy more cars than you currently buy? Will you be able to sell more cars than you currently sell? And will you be able to make more money than you're currently making? And when asking and answering these questions, be honest with yourself. Are you limited to how many cars you can sell, how many cars you can flip, how many cars you can buy, and the profit that you can make doing that? These are all questions that you should analyze carefully, and if the answer to these questions is yes, then that could be a good indicator that a dealer's license is the right path for you. But if in reality a dealer's license or lack thereof isn't really holding you back in any way, then it's probably a good idea to put this on hold. This is where a dealer's license and a commercial space really work in conjunction with one another, at least with the thought process that I've been using over the last 5 years. Like I mentioned a moment ago, there is a real dilemma of what comes first, the dealer's license or the commercial space. Do you get a dealer's license because you're getting a commercial space and it makes sense in order to make that leap? Or are you getting that commercial space purely because you want to get the dealer's license? Whenever you're having this debate with yourself of whether or not it makes sense to get a dealer's license and thus in most cases a commercial space, you need to ask yourself, will you have the ability to make more profit by having these two resources at your disposal? And let me use my own fleet as an example. We have in the past decided against getting a dealer's license and a commercial space because we didn't feel like the lack of these two things were holding us back in present day. We run our business incredibly efficiently out of our home office and our home garage by utilizing 4 commercially rented parking spaces. And at this point in time, a commercial warehouse of some sort wouldn't be able to make us make more money. But we have decided, based off of what we know about our current operation, that we will begin to see an issue once we hit between 25 and 30 cars. At that point in time, we will have outgrown our current operation. And by working out of our house, out of our home garage, and out of a 4-car parking space, we will at that point in time be creating bottlenecking issues for ourselves. And at that point, it will make sense to move to a commercial building, because from there, we will be able to make more money by doing so. If we continue our current operation, once we head into the high 30s, lower 40s for cars, we will be creating a lot of issues because we simply don't have the space and the resources with where we're currently located. We also know that at that point in time, we'll be able to utilize our dealer's license to make more money by A, buying more cars at a below market value price. We can start flipping cars for extra revenue sources. We can bring more maintenance and repairs in-house by installing a proper shop with more tools and resources. And we can, of course, have more space to hold and turn over vehicles for vehicle rentals. But we know that in the past and as of right now, we are working perfectly fine with the resources that we have. So getting a dealer's license and a commercial space in present day just doesn't make sense, and it would be spending unnecessary funds. But in about 6 months to a year, the story may be quite a bit different, and at that point in time, we'll have to reevaluate. Another thing to keep in mind is rent prices, specifically rent for these commercial spaces, because the reality is this is a big factor. HP and I live in the Dallas area, and Dallas commercial real estate is extremely expensive. If we wanted to get a useful warehouse that had everything we wanted and needed out of a space, we would probably have to spend between $1,300 and $2,000 per month. And as of right now, we would much rather allocate that money to buying more cars rather than renting out a space. But if you are somebody who is interested in getting your dealer's license and looking into a commercial space, I would encourage you to do some research and figure out how much the average rate would be if you wanted to lease that space. Because the truth is that cost has been a big factor for us, and if we could find a space that was about $500 to $1,000 per month, we probably would have already leased one by now. But with the price ranges where they currently are, it just doesn't make sense. So you'll want to figure out how much a fair lease rent would be in your area, because that may be a big factor in making the decision for you, either helping persuade you in making the leap to get your license or convincing you to hold off for a few more years. Now, unfortunately, like I mentioned a moment ago, the answer to this question isn't a simple yes or no, and there are a lot of factors at play here. But everything that I've outlined in this video are some of the different thought processes that I've been using over the last 5 years in order to make this decision for me. Basically, the general rule of thumb that I'm using is that if a dealer's license is going to cost me roughly $1,500 to $2,000 more per month in operational costs for my business, I want to know that I can at least make more than $1,500 to $2,000 per month off of the benefits of that dealer's license alone. Whether that means being able to buy more cars at a cheaper price and thus make more money through my rental cars, whether that be buying cars and flipping them, or whether that means bringing in more of my work in-house and thus being able to cut my expenses. The dealer's license needs to make me more money than what it's costing me. And you can sit down and do this math quite easily to figure out if a dealer's license is a sound investment for you. But with that being said, you guys, I get asked this question all the time, and as somebody who is currently going through the process of deciding whether or not a dealer's license is on the forefront for 2023, I thought that this would be a perfect time to make this video. Now, it does look like I probably will be getting my dealer's license next year, and the reason why I will be getting it is so that I can grow and scale my Turo fleet more efficiently. So if you're interested in following that journey, make sure to check out my vlog channel. And if you guys have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video.